Stop. Breathe. Look at where you are right now. Not where you've been, not where you might be heading just this moment, as it is unfiltered and untouched by analysis. That's the key, isn't it? Because the truth is, most of our suffering comes not from life itself, but from the mental gymnastics we perform trying to decipher it, dissect it, control it. Overthinking is like trying to grasp water in your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips away. Life isn't something to solve. It's not a puzzle or a riddle. It's a dance, an unfolding, a wave. And waves don't need your permission to rise or fall. They simply do. So why do you insist on standing at the shore, endlessly calculating the height and speed of each wave? Dive in. Let the ocean carry you, because that's where the magic is, in the trust, in the surrender. We overthink because we believe we can outwit uncertainty. We imagine that if we think just a little harder, anticipate every possible outcome, then maybe, just maybe, we'll finally be safe. But have you noticed? No amount of thinking has ever made you invincible. It only tightens the knots, blinds you to the beauty right before you, and robs you of your peace. The present moment is the only place where life actually happens. But when you overthink, you're stuck somewhere else, rehashing the past, rehearsing the future. And yet, the past is gone, the future is unwritten. You miss the joy, the stillness, the wonder of now, because you're busy chasing ghosts. Let go. Trust. Yes, there will be uncertainties, there will be mistakes, messiness, and imperfection. But that's not a flaw in the system, it's the design. Trying to outsmart life is like trying to edit a masterpiece while it's still being painted. Instead of resisting, allow yourself to be swept along by the brushstrokes. Trust that the picture will make sense when it's complete. Your thoughts are powerful, yes, but they are not you. They are tools to guide you, not shackles to bind you. Use them when they serve you, but know when to set them down. Don't let your mind become a factory of fear, producing endless scenarios that never come to pass. Simplify. Don't overthink the simplicity of that advice either. Just simplify. Let the wind blow without analyzing its direction. Let the sun rise without wondering if it's too bright. Let life flow as it always is, unpredictable, untamed, and utterly beautiful. Life is not something that is meant to be contained, to be held still. It is like a river, constantly moving, shaping, and evolving. It flows through us, around us, and beyond us, yet we often try to stop it, to pause it, to control its direction. We hold on to moments, to people, to ideas, as if we could preserve them forever, but this only causes us to resist the natural course of things. The flow of life cannot be contained within the walls we build, the plans we make, or the expectations we place upon it. When we attempt to freeze life in place, to grasp it with both hands and never let go, we create tension. We build barriers between ourselves and the world around us. This resistance doesn't stop the flow, but it causes us to become disconnected from the rhythm of the universe, from the natural cycles that guide all living things. We may try to avoid the unpredictable currents, the twists and turns that life brings, but the truth is, these are the very elements that give it texture, color, and depth. The uncertainty, the change, and the flow are not problems to be solved, they are the essence of life itself. The moments when we let go and simply flow with life are the times when we feel most alive, when we are connected to the world in the deepest way. When we stop resisting, when we trust in the flow, everything begins to make sense. The flow of life doesn't need our interference. It moves through time and space, guided by forces we may not fully understand. But that doesn't mean we must fear it. When we trust the flow, we allow ourselves to be carried instead of fighting against the current. We are born from this flow, and we return to it. There is nothing static about life. It's always changing, always unfolding, and this is what makes it so profound. Life is a continuous current, ever moving, never halting. We like to think we can catch it, freeze it in a moment, but it slips through our fingers as soon as we try to grip it. The nature of life is change, flux, and movement. Nothing stays the same, and that's exactly how it's meant to be. When we attempt to make it static, we miss the point. Life is not a still photograph to be analyzed, it's a flowing river that needs to be experienced. The effort to control or predict what happens next keeps us from being present with what is. We constantly attempt to construct order out of disorder, thinking that if we can pin everything down, we can avoid chaos. But chaos is just another word for the dynamic, unpredictable nature of life, and it cannot be subdued by overthinking. It must be embraced, allowed to come and go freely. Every moment is a new wave in the vast ocean of time, and yet we are obsessed with clinging to the shore. We fear the unknown, the parts of life we cannot predict or plan for. But the moment we let go of the need to control, we realize that the very essence of living is not in grasping, but in surrendering. Surrendering to the flow means trusting that each wave, each shift in the current, is exactly what is meant to be. We fight the flow of life when we cling to the past, when we expect the future to unfold exactly how we envision it, and when we resist the changes that naturally arise, but the flow of life doesn't stop. It doesn't wait for us to catch up, to figure everything out, or to align it all perfectly. It continues with or without us. And the more we fight it, the more we exhaust ourselves. Life flows around us, and we are part of that flow. It doesn't need to be controlled, it simply needs to be experienced. There is nothing static about it, only endless change, growth, and evolution. Each moment is a new expression of life's movement, and the beauty of it lies in our willingness to move with it, not against it. When we stop overthinking and start flowing, we discover that life itself is the greatest teacher. Life unfolds like a river, carving its path through the landscape of existence. Yet we often get caught in the illusion that we must control this flow, that we must constantly plan, predict, and calculate every step ahead. We believe that if we think hard enough, we can foresee every possible outcome, shield ourselves from mistakes, and avoid the unknown. But in truth, overthinking pulls us further away from the present moment. It's a mental trap, a diversion that keeps us from experiencing life as it is. When we are lost in thought, we are not here. We are somewhere else, either replaying a conversation that happened hours ago or imagining a future that may never come. We have left the current moment, the one where life is actually happening. And instead, we're somewhere in between, trapped in a mental space of what-ifs, and should have the mind spins out possibilities that never arrive, creating anxiety over things that might never happen. In the present, everything is alive. There is beauty in simplicity, in being with what is, in feeling the air on your skin, or listening to the sound of your own breath. This is where life truly exists, right here, right now. And yet, we often fail to notice it because we are too busy overthinking, projecting, and preparing for things that lie beyond our immediate experience. We forget that life is not something to be analyzed, but something to be experienced. When we are truly present, we are not consumed by fear or doubt. We are simply moving with life, responding naturally to the unfolding of each moment. There is no need to overthink or anticipate. Life is already unfolding perfectly, with or without our interference. The moment we stop resisting and trying to control, we become one with the flow. We are no longer the observer trying to understand the river. From the bank, we become the river itself, flowing effortlessly with the current. Overthinking distances us from the beauty and spontaneity of life. It creates a barrier between us and the present moment. The key is to let go of the constant mental chatter, to stop trying to predict and control, and to simply be. When we free ourselves from the endless cycle of thought, we open ourselves up to the richness of now, the only moment where life truly exists. Trust the process, for life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be experienced. Too often, we become fixated on outcomes, believing that everything must unfold according to our own timeline, our own expectations. We think that if we can just control every detail, every decision, we can ensure the perfect future, the perfect life. But this need for control comes from a fear that the process itself is flawed, that we are not capable of handling what comes next. In truth, the process is the key. Our job is not to control it, but to trust in it. Life is not a sequence of events that we must micromanage. It is a series of steps, a flow that carries us forward, often in ways we cannot predict. And though we may not always see the bigger picture, that does not mean it is not unfolding perfectly in its own way. We often struggle with uncertainty, with not knowing what the next step will be, but this is where the magic lies. When we surrender to the process, when we trust that life will unfold as it should, we are liberated from the stress of needing to control every outcome. What if the unexpected turns, the detours, the mistakes, and the failures were all part of the plan? What if the beauty of life is not in the perfect straight line from beginning to end, but in the meandering path that teaches us more than any perfectly executed plan could? Trusting the process means accepting that not everything will go as we expect, but it also means having faith that everything is leading us somewhere, perhaps not to where we thought we would go, but to where we need to be. Our minds are constantly trying to figure out the future, to predict every possible outcome. But the future is not something that can be controlled. It is something we walk into, step by step, and only in hindsight will we see the lessons, the growth, the experiences that shape it. The beauty of life lies in its unpredictability. If we trust the process, we allow ourselves to experience the richness of each moment without the weight of expectation. Life is not a destination, but a journey that must be lived, not analyzed from the sidelines. The key is to stop worrying about the next step, the next decision, and simply move with the flow. Trust that the path will reveal itself, that the process will guide us where we need to go. Each moment holds within it exactly what we need if we can simply let go of our need to control and trust in the unfolding of life. Thoughts are incredibly powerful, but they are not who we are. The mind is a tool meant to assist us, not dominate us. Too often we become identified with our thoughts, as if every idea, every belief, every worry that passes through our minds is an integral part of our being. We are not our thoughts, we are the awareness that observes them. When we begin to view thoughts as mere passing clouds in the sky of consciousness, we reclaim our power and peace. Overthinking happens when we give too much attention to the thoughts that arise, as if each one carries a weight of truth we must act upon. We start believing that every worry, every anxious scenario painted by the mind is a reflection of reality. But in reality, most of our thoughts are not based in truth. They are projections, fantasies, or memories that no longer serve us. When we treat them as absolute truths, we become entangled in them, as if we are at the mercy of our own minds. Our minds can become noisy, incessantly churning out fears, doubts, and endless calculations. Yet we are not helpless in this storm. The key is recognizing that we have the power to choose which thoughts to engage with and which ones to simply observe and let go. Just because a thought arises doesn't mean we must follow it, accept it, or let it control us. We can let it pass by, like a leaf carried down the stream of our consciousness, knowing that it has no hold over us. When we stop overthinking, we free ourselves from the tyranny of the mind. We stop trying to control every thought, to analyze every feeling, and instead allow ourselves to be guided by the deeper wisdom that exists beyond the mind. There is a peace that arises when we remember that thoughts are just tools, helpful when used for action or understanding, but not to be clung to or treated as truths. Thoughts can come and go, but they do not define us. We are not the sum of our thoughts, nor should we live at the mercy of them. By recognizing this, we allow ourselves to regain control, to be the observer, not the prisoner, of our own mind. When we stop overthinking, we open ourselves up to clarity, to action, and to peace. We reclaim the freedom to live fully in each moment, without the endless distraction of mental noise. Perfectionism is a trap that binds us to a constant state of dissatisfaction. It tells us that nothing is ever enough, that we must always strive for an ideal that is constantly shifting, always just out of reach. It convinces us that we must be flawless in every aspect of our lives, whether it's how we look, how we perform, or how we perform, or how we interact with the world. But perfectionism is a lie, and it is one of the greatest contributors to overthinking. The fear of imperfection keeps us spinning in circles, endlessly analyzing our actions, questioning our decisions, and doubting ourselves. The pursuit of perfection is rooted in fear, the fear that we are not enough, that we must prove our worth to others and to ourselves. But the truth is that imperfection is not something to fear. It is the essence of life itself. In every flaw, there is something real, something human. The cracks are where the light gets in, and it is in our imperfections that we find our true beauty, our authenticity, and our depth. When we stop striving for perfection, we allow ourselves to be human. We give ourselves permission to make mistakes, to learn, and to grow. Life is not a series of flawless performances. It is a journey of experience, of trial and error, of discovering who we are in the process. Every misstep, every failure is a lesson that brings us closer to our true selves. The pursuit of perfection only serves to isolate us from the richness of life, creating a distance between who we are and who we think we should be. Instead of overthinking every small detail in an attempt to meet some unattainable standard, we can embrace the beauty of imperfection. We can allow ourselves to create, to act, to live without the burden of perfection weighing us down. There is freedom in accepting that we don't have to be perfect to be worthy. We don't have to have everything figured out to be valuable. In fact, it is our imperfections that make us relatable, that make us real. When we release the need for perfection, we open the door to creativity, to spontaneity, and to the fullness of life. We stop overthinking and start living not as perfect beings, but as complete, whole human beings. And in that freedom, we discover the greatest gift of all, the joy of simply being who we are. Simplicity is often the most profound answer to the complex problems we create for ourselves. We live in a world that constantly tells us that more is better, that success is defined by accumulation, whether of possessions, achievements, or even experiences. We believe that we must have everything figured out, that we must understand every aspect of our lives in great detail. And in this quest for more, we drown ourselves in complexity, in analysis, in overthinking. But simplicity holds the key to peace, to clarity, and to true understanding. Life itself is simple, if we choose to see it that way. We are born, we live, and we die. The beauty of life doesn't lie in its complexity, but in its simplicity. The sky doesn't need to be analyzed to be appreciated. The ocean doesn't require our understanding to be vast and magnificent. Yet we constantly seek to complicate things, to fill in every gap with an answer, to dissect every moment until we have unraveled it completely. But in doing so, we lose the essence of life. We forget how to simply experience it. Simplicity doesn't mean living without depth or purpose. It means removing the excess, the noise, the unnecessary clutter that distracts us from what truly matters. It means allowing ourselves to be present in the moment, to embrace what is without needing to add layers of thought on top of it. When we overthink, we complicate, and when we complicate, we lose sight of what is already there, the beauty, the truth, the simplicity of existence. The more we simplify, the more we can appreciate. The more we stop overthinking, the more space we create for understanding, for joy, and for peace. We don't need to have all the answers. We don't need to control every outcome. Life is not a problem to be solved, it's a mystery to be lived. And in that mystery, simplicity is not a limitation, but a freedom, a freedom, a freedom to live fully, without the burden of unnecessary expectations, without the pressure of always figuring it out. By embracing simplicity, we free ourselves from the chaos we create with our minds. We stop overthinking and start experiencing life as it is, beautiful, full, and unencumbered by the excess we often impose. In simplicity, we find clarity, peace, and a deep connection to the present moment. In the end, overthinking only robs us of the present moment, the very essence of life. The mind, while powerful, is meant to be a servant, not a master. by trusting the flow of life, letting go of perfection, embracing simplicity, and remembering that we are not our thoughts, we can free ourselves from the endless cycle of doubt and fear. The key to living fully is not in analyzing every detail, but in surrendering to the process and allowing life to unfold naturally. When we stop overthinking, we open ourselves to the richness of each moment, finding peace, clarity, and joy in simply being. Let go of the need for control, embrace the uncertainty, and trust that everything is exactly as it needs to be. Life is waiting for you to experience it not in your head, but in your heart.